Hello everybody, this is Refresh, and I'm here to take a look at the Mono Red Aggro Challenger deck for Magic the Gathering. This came out during Kaldheim Standard, and according to the back it says, this red deck wins, use burn spells to keep your opponent off balance and then utterly overwhelm them with a steady stream of fierce and fiery friends. Per the title, it is a red deck, and the contents include a battle-ready 60-card deck, 15-card sideboard, 6 double-face card helper cards, 5 double-sided tokens, and a deck box. Let's go ahead and open it up. It says red deck wins. Here's the deck box. Pretty simple cardboard deck box. Inside we have a spacer and a card divider with the outside artwork. Then we have our deck and our sideboard. This is big enough to host sleeve cards, so that's a plus. Let's take a look at the deck first. As you can see, a lot of this deck, minus maybe some of these double-faced cards, aren't really from current standard, but they are from standards of the past, and so this does seem to be relying heavily on the Eldraine cards especially, but I don't think that this is going to be surprising anybody who has played some mono red standard decks, and so we'll see if this can hold up to any of the other challenger decks that came out at the same time, and I'll be back to let you know what I think. So I've had a chance to play with this deck a little, and here are my thoughts. The first thing is that this is a pretty good mono red aggro list for the time. I do think that this deck does have some of the major staples of mono red aggro decks, at least as of the Throne of Eldraine, because that's what was so bonkers that even this deck is largely defined by it. For example, you have the Bone Crusher Giants and the Torbrands all doing a lot of work here. And in addition to that, you have a bunch of Fervent Champions, Castle Embereth, and most importantly, Embercleave, which there is only one copy of in this deck, which I understand because Wizards needs to preserve the value of people's cards, so they can't just enter the requisite 3 Embercleaves that would probably be better in this deck. But as you can see, this deck is fairly well defined by the Throne of Eldraine still, and the new inclusions include the Kargan Intimidators, the Akum Hellhounds, some of the Spike-Filled Hazards, the Royal Eruptions, and Shatterskull Smashing. I guess that's about it. Otherwise, it's just low to the ground, turn your creature sideways, get rid of things that are in the way, and eventually you can play a Torbrand and sometimes even burn face with shocks or Spike-Filled Hazards for the win. I think that some of the weaknesses of the deck include the Akum Hellhounds, which are a little dependent on lands to actually get in there for damage, and so I wonder if there was a better but probably more expensive 1-drop that this deck could have used. And the deck requires a little bit of careful piloting because of those Hellhounds, because you need to know when to hold lands and when to play lands for those Hellhounds. Otherwise they're doing literally nothing except maybe powering up your Annex Hardened in the Forge. And so could this deck have been a little better? Yeah, I think throwing some more Embercleaves in there and maybe switching out a couple things would have made it more powerful. But I think that it is a reasonable representation of a mono red aggro list, and it works. It's not the strongest deck, but probably is the second strongest deck amongst the 2021 Challenger decks. And if you like mono red aggro, I feel like every single Challenger deck list is going to have some sort of mono red aggro variant. So here's one that you can try and use to smash your opponent's face. There's a little bit more variation in the sideboard, but it's mostly just removal and a couple of small ways of dealing with other types of decks. So if you like mono red aggro, you'll always have one that you can play, I guess, from the Challenger decks. If you have experience with mono red aggro during the time of this release, which is a little bit after Kaldheim, or with this deck specifically, let us know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.